Interlude Sunday morning, particularly across eastern areas, so a good start to the day on Sunday, but it does quickly cloud over as this next area of rain pushes eastwards. It will be a briefer spell of rain, and behind it we'll see further dry weather arrive. We could also see some more dry weather developing by the middle of next week, but it will be an unsettled start to the week at least.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m, and this is Patrick Christys Tonight. OK, so students in Bristol are so offended by the national anthem that they've got the university to ban it. I ask whether or not those unpatriotic woke brats should shut up or leave Britain. Now, does this tweet offend you? Well, I was certainly quite offended by that, but there we go. The Tories are in turmoil about a post saying that Labour are sticking the middle finger up at the public over immigration, but they're right, aren't they, Prince Harry? Well, he's lost a court battle to get a newspaper's libel defence thrown out. Will Harry keep getting a kicking in the courts? And is Philip Schofield as well, yes, about to make a sensational return to your television screens? A new report from ITV has been branded a whitewash and a waste of time, but it could lead to his return. Over on my panel tonight, I have got Emma Wolfe, John Sargent and Tonya Buxton. This is Patrick Christys Tonight. Your Friday night starts now. Get in touch now. What do you say to students who find the national anthem offensive? GBViews at gbnews.com. I will see you after the headlines.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Downing Street has rejected claims MPs were misled over the cost of the Rwanda scheme. That's after it emerged the asylum plan has reached £240 million before any flights have taken off. Ministers expect a further £50 million will be spent in the coming year. Rishi Sunak, who's facing division within his party over the policy, is hoping to rush emergency legislation through Parliament with the first vote on Tuesday. A man has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 20 years for stabbing 2 police officers in central London.
Great Wimble Street. Stay where you are. Get back.
The Met Police has now released body cam footage of the attack. Mohammed Rahman stabbed PC Joseph Gerard in the neck and chest and PC Alana Mulhall in the arm after a police pursuit in September of last year. The 25-year-old was convicted of attempted murder and grievous bodily harm. A teenager has been arrested on suspicion of murdering a woman who was shot dead in East London. 42-year-old Leanne Gordon was killed in Hackney on Tuesday evening. She was one of 3 people found with a gunshot wound. A 20-year-old man and a 16-year-old boy were taken to hospital. A blast that damaged a ULEZ camera in south-east London has been described as grotesquely irresponsible by the London Mayor's office. Counter-terror police are leading an investigation into the incident, which happened in Sidcup on Wednesday night. While it's not being treated as terrorism, the explosion is believed to have been a deliberate act. The decision to expand the ultra-low emission zone in the capital has led to a surge in vandalism. A gender reform ruling has been described as a dark day for devolution by Scotland's First Minister. Scotland's highest civil court found the government acted lawfully by blocking the controversial bill. The legislation, which makes it easier for people to legally change their recognised sex, received cross-party support in Holyrood. Humza Yousaf says the judgment confirms that devolution is fundamentally flawed. A funeral for the Pogues frontman Shane MacGowan has been held in Ireland. Paying tribute to the singer, the band's hit Christmas track, Fairy Tale of New York, was sung during the service. Family, friends, politicians and celebrities filled St Mary of the Rosary Church in County Tipperary. Hollywood A-lister Johnny Depp was among those delivering a reading. Giving a eulogy, his sister Siobhan said Shane MacGowan lit a fire that burns in Ireland and across the world. And his widow, Victoria Mary Clark, spoke and praised of the singer.
He really did live so close to the edge that he seemed like he was going to fall off many times. I mean, we've had me and Siobhan and all the family. We've kind of lived in terror, haven't we, for a very long time. But on the plus side, I think that exploration led to a kind of creativity which may not have been possible without the use of all these substances.
And you can watch that on TV, online, DAB, on radio and on our smart speaker by saying play GB News. And now it's back to Patrick.
Welcome along. Now, there is turmoil on Tory Twitter. The Conservative Party's official account put this picture out. OK, so there we go. The caption says, Labour, when you ask for their plans to tackle illegal migration. Now, personally, I think they've got a point. What are Labour's plans? Oh, we'll tackle the human traffickers. What, so Sir Keir Starmer is going to send in the SAS to rampage across Europe, is he? Obviously not. We know what they really mean. Closer cooperation with Europe, another step towards creeping back into the EU. The same European security forces, by the way, that have allowed the entire continent to be turned into something resembling a dumping ground. The problem with working more closely with the EU is that you end up working more closely with a group of people who don't ideologically want to stop the migrant crisis, in my view. People like Leo Varadkar in Ireland, who clearly sees nothing wrong with mass illegal immigration and thinks people protesting about the problem are the problem, and they need to have their human rights obliterated. You only have to look at the fact that tens of thousands of inflatable dinghies are able to be transported across the entire continent of Europe and find their way to the shoreline of Calais to know how little Europe cares about stopping this problem. I am convinced that European leaders want the migrant crisis. The Labour Party say that they will process asylum claims quicker. Or when they say that, all I hear is, we'll just wave them through. So, I think the Tories might have a point. But then you get, some people would call him the Taliban's PR guru. He would deny that, of course. Tobias Ellwood tweeting things like that you can see on your screens now. Please delete this, he says. I mean, it's just open warfare in the Tory party, isn't it? They're kicking off about a tweet now. All these pearl-clutching One Nation Tories whinging about things like this being demeaning. Well, you know what's demeaning? Britain being turned into a care home for vast parts of the third world by people who had years to see the migrant crisis coming and did absolutely nothing until it was far too late. You know what's demeaning? Ordinary Brits being taxed into poverty to prop up crumbling, failing public services, creaking under the weight of rapid population growth. Stop the Boats enthusiast Jonathan Gullis tweeted, I approve this message, over that tweet that we saw there from the Tory party. And then former number 10 Chief of Staff Gavin Barwell tweeted, to be fair, this is about his level. And then Gullis appeared to hit back by posting a story about Barwell allegedly getting caught out in some kind of kinky porn shocker on Twitter, which, I mean, it didn't go down that well, but I did think it was quite hilarious, actually. Anyway, the original tweet is still up there. People find it offensive. Personally, I find the Channel migrant crisis much more offensive. I think it would be nice if those cretins who sit in the House of Commons actually did something about it. But there's a lot to unpack here. Let's get the thoughts of my wonderful panel. I've got former BBC chief political correspondent John Sargent, I've got author and broadcaster Emma Wolfe, and I've got author and activist Tonya Buxton. I'll work my way down the line. Tonya, I will start with you. Do you think that Labour are sticking the middle finger up to us about this?
Yes, absolutely, and without a shadow of a doubt. And I like the fact that the Tory party shows that they've got a bit of a sense of humour and put that out. Because, let me tell you, the lefties are always chucking things at those that are centre or right of the world. And so I think it was really funny. The Labour Party has no plan because they don't intend to stop anything from happening. And Keir Starmer is doing whatever, the bare minimum that he needs to do, because he kind of knows he's going to win. Whatever happens, he's going to win, and it's going to be a massive anti-Tory vote because the Tories haven't behaved like Conservatives throughout the past, I'd say, 8, 9 years. Maybe they started at the beginning, but they haven't continued. OK,
America, I sense a minor point of disagreement there?
Well, I think it's always a mistake when politicians start getting involved and trying to get involved in social media. I think it was slightly odd to use that image of the newsreader yesterday, sticking a finger out in, which was a mistake.
It was funny. Did you not find it funny?
Not really, and also I wish they would focus on getting on with the job. Like you say, we have a huge crisis in this country. And do you know what? It doesn't even matter what we think about it, what they tweet. The fact is the British people have spoken. Well, they spoke at the Brexit referendum, saying we want to take back control of our borders. They have since spoken again and again and again that they are not happy with these numbers, whether it's legal migration or illegal immigration. The fact is we have got nearly 1 million people now coming to this country over the past 12 months. It is too many. Our public services are creaking, they are crumbling. People have asked our government to do something about that. And what I find really offensive, forget the silly tweet and all of that stuff, and all of them hitting back at each other and just showing the utter lack of party discipline. Rishi Sunak in meltdown yesterday, I mean, he seems completely deranged. His Rwanda policy is just spiralling. The costs are spiralling out of control, and he just seems to be desperate to get this ludicrous, failed policy through. But the point is, the British people would like immigration to be got under control. That has still not happened.
John, I mean, obviously, tweeting anything like that was unbecoming for a man of your stature. But do you think that there is some truth to it? You know, the Tories have got a lot of stick, rightly so. I've given them a lot of stick in the last couple of days, especially over this Rwanda plan. But you know, should the fingers not be pointed at Labour now?
Well, I mean, that's all very well, but for the Tories, they've really got a chance now, if they could grasp it, to pull together around a plan. Now, I don't think the plan's going to work, but there are moments in politics, rough, raw, difficult moments, when you support anything which will at least keep you going. And that's what they need to do. And if they do involve, arguing about Labour and various things, when everybody knows the attention is on them, on their Prime Minister, there's a vote next week. And so they may think it's funny, but the public are just thinking, now, wait a moment, could these people just get themselves together, sort out what is a reasonable project, and if not, it looks as if there's a real possibility now that Rishi Sunak will have to call a general election. Now, they've got to decide whether they want to go that way, but it's not sort of pit-pat, let's have it a ping-pong and let's fool about. This is a moment of critical choice, which could, in fact, people could still be talking about this in 5 years' time or saying that was the moment when. Well, now, I think they've got to take this very seriously, and if they're going to put themselves behind the Rwanda plan, knowing it may not work, it's a terrific political risk, but they may have to. It's not a great option, but it may be the only one they've got.
I'll work my way back down. Go on,
yeah, it cannot work. I respectfully disagree, John.
I disrespect everything you just said.
I've not said the Rwanda plan will work.
You said it had a reasonable chance. And
I did not say it has a reasonable chance. They have got to. Don't get me wrong. They've got the reasonable chances to back the plan, even though the plan may not work out.
But I wonder if it would be better at this stage.
Please don't say I think the Rwanda plan is going to work, because that really is ridiculous.
No,
I didn't say anything like that.
Tony, do you think there is any desire whatsoever from politicians in Europe to actually really stop the migrant crisis? I mean, I look at this now, I think, so Labour are saying things like, well, right, we'll smash the human trafficking gangs. Oh, well, all right, how are you going to do that? Well, we'll work with Europe. Right, but that is the same continent that has allowed this to happen.
No. I mean, the rot started in Europe with Angela Merkel opening the doors, and we are stuck with it. And unfortunately, I just can't see, unless something really dramatic happens, how it will ever stop. Because they don't have the appetite, they don't care. They are laughing at us. The European Union is laughing at us.
The migrants are laughing at us.
Everyone's laughing at us, yeah. We are a joke. We have become... Great Britain has become a joke.
No, it hasn't.
It has, unfortunately.
If you actually follow the politics in these different countries, lots of them are very, very worried and concerned about immigration and what to do about it. The French, particularly, are involved in a real political crisis. They're not bothered about it. They couldn't care less, really, about whether a tweet's been sent or whether Labour are embarrassed or what Rishi Sunak doing. They're arguing amongst themselves what they can do when there's meant to be free movement within the European Union.
Well, Germany, we're covering this later.
It's very, very difficult for all of them, but the idea they're laughing at us is far too serious.
I will push back slightly on that, John, because we did have a package from Mark White, Home and Security Editor in Calais, a couple of days ago, and we did speak to a French politician who was laughing at us, and the migrants who were.
Good man.
I get what you mean, but I mean, it did happen. So there is that. Emma, when we look at the way that the Conservative politicians have gone after each other on this now, though, I mean, regardless of Rwanda or not, I am kind of sitting here now and just thinking, like, is this really fit for government? Is this where we are? The longer this goes on, I do wonder whether or not that's a problem for Britain. But then I also think, well, what's the alternative? I suppose a Labour government, and that's got its own issues.
Of course it has, and the reason that we haven't got a policy from Labour is we haven't had very many policies at all from them as we go into election. I think it's very clear to everybody this is going to be an immigration election, an immigration and an economy election. And I think in the last few weeks, obviously, lots can happen over the next year. A year is a long time in politics, if it is a year until the next election. But I think in the last few weeks, Rishi Sunak has pretty much lost himself and probably the Conservatives the next election, beginning with that, very, very powerful events around Suella Braverman's statement. The night before, Robert Jenrick resigning, and he's a close friend of Rishi Sunak. I just think Sunak is looking increasingly isolated, increasingly nonsensical and deranged. His speech about this is not only the right approach, it's the only approach, as if Rwanda was the only approach. Well, what he needs to do is what he did with HS2, which is shelve it and start again.
Okay. What he needs to do is come out of the ECRH, and the European Courts of Human Rights are what are messing us up. He needs to just grow a spine, come out of that and really be a dictator in this way, because we've got nowhere to turn. British people have no one to vote for the things that are important to them.
No, I agree with you on that.
We can't vote for Labour, we can't vote for the Conservatives. The only way that Rishi could win is if he did that. That would make a big difference. Rwanda, unfortunately, it feels Mickey Mouse. I understand what they were trying to do because they felt they had nothing else to do, but it was never going to work.
No, it's a joke. Even if it does, even if they ever get planes off the ground, off that runway, it will have cost £169,000 per migrant.
I know.
That is ludicrous.
I know, but the problem is Rishi Sunak's not a very experienced politician. He knows theoretically if you're in a hole, stop digging. He should, in fact, the moment the Supreme Court, or he knew the Supreme Court was going to act, he should have been advised long before the decision. How is it that they could, three of them in the Supreme Court,
this is the point,
could be so firm? And wait a minute, the key part of the ruling, which people have forgotten, is he's saying it's a British court. They were said, we're a British court, we're following British law, and you still can't do it. Now, it's nothing to do with ECHG or anything else or any other international treaty. British law about you've got to, in fact, look at the asylum claims and consider them properly.
I think you make a good point there, and it's something that, about the advice, that who is advising these people. One thing that I suggest we can maybe all unite behind is the fundamental appalling leadership that this country has had for years now. For years, in a variety of different guises, we are being let down by our leaders.
We are. We need something else. This is it.
We currently have a choice between Sunak and Starmer, effectively.
Exactly.
Is this the best we've got? There are so many homeless Conservatives right now. Everybody I speak to says, I can't vote Labour, I just can't bring myself to vote for this Conservative
Everything's
party.
got to become a disaster before urgent action is going. We could see the migrant crisis coming years ago. You know, it started out on the Greek islands. Started out on the Greek islands getting filled up and working their way through in Italy and then Germany, like
and it's no good just shunting it around Europe and then shunting it over the channel. We're just moving the problem around. We're not dealing with the problem at source.
Every now and then do think, when you sort of, because I hate it when people say the country's finished and it's all going
No, I don't think it's finished,
Just look what's happening in America. They're finding the same extreme difficulty closing their border. They've had one president in who was going to build a wall. They've got Biden not knowing what to do. They have real troubles. There are thousands of people.
Look at the difference in geography there, though. To be fair, the southern border in the United States, it's absolutely vast. It's on land. I mean, we have got essentially a moat around Britain. I do think that should be easier. It's obviously proving not to be. We're off to a flyer. Thank you very, very much. A bit more on this later on, but still to come. As Prince Harry loses his court case against the Mail, we get the royal inside from former BBC royal correspondent Jenny Bond. But up next in The Clash, freedom fighter Toby Young goes head-to-head with Novara Media's Aaron Bastani as the woke Bristol University bans the so-called offensive national anthem from graduation ceremonies. Are we wrong to be proud of our country? And what does this mean for the future? Stay tuned.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, we'll go straight in now with The Clash. Well, never shying away from controversial moves, the now woke Bristol University has sparked uproar after the national anthem has reportedly been scrapped from its graduation ceremonies. Now, historically, the Russell Group University had ended its graduation ceremonies with a student leading a rousing rendition of the national anthem. But it turns out the song was quietly axed from the ceremony last year and will now only be played when a representative of the royal family is present. So students at the uni, which ranks 9th in the UK, said that God Save the King was outdated and old-fashioned and apparently potentially offensive. Joining us now for The Clash is the General Secretary of the Free Speech Union, Toby Young, and Novara Media co-founder Aaron Bastani. Chaps, thank you very much. Looking forward to this. Toby, I'll start with you. Look, what do you make of the idea now that students apparently think the national anthem is outdated and offensive?
Well, it's hard to understand why students would think the singing of the national anthem, God Save the King, is offensive. Offensive to whom? There's nothing offensive about any of the lyrics. And frankly, I find Bristol's contempt for Britain's history, Britain's heritage, slightly offensive, particularly when you bear in mind that Bristol University depends for its financial survival on being subsidised by the British taxpayer. I think in the year 21 to 22, it received almost £60 million in taxpayer funded. It received something like 225 million to pay for a new AI supercomputer in November. It gets a huge amount of money from the taxpayer. I mean, if it really has such contempt for this country and its people and its traditions, well, maybe it should take its begging bowl elsewhere.
Aaron, throw it over to you.
Well, I find it interesting that such an argument would come from Toby, because obviously, Toby, if you don't mind me saying, you're on the centre-right. You believe in markets. I presume you're a supporter of privatised universities, the reforms to universities we've seen over the last 25 years. And at the heart of those reforms, Patrick, is the idea that these should operate as businesses, not as the cornerstone of a national political community. And I think we have to make that choice about what purpose do these organisations serve. I personally don't think universities should be like Tesco or Primark. I think they should be part of a national community, and I think as a result people shouldn't have to pay tuition fees. And yes, of course, there should be a certain respect and deference to the traditions of the country writ large. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say on the one hand we think these should be privately run organisations purely responding to the market, and on the other hand, they should be these venerable, august, tradition-oriented institutions. I think it really has to be one or the other.
OK, Toby, is there not something maybe a bit deeper going on here about that generation coming through? I mean, Bristol University was in the news for another reason this morning, actually, because one of its members of staff was allegedly making comments about whether or not someone should blow up a building that had Jews in it, etc. I just wonder if academia as a whole and the generation coming through it now are, well, kind of pseudo-radical left activists. Is that part of the problem here, in your view, Toby?
Well, let's not jump to the conclusion, Patrick, that all the students at the university support this decision, or even that the majority of the students find the singing of the national anthem at graduation ceremonies offensive. I mean, normally these radical progressive decisions are driven by a small, outspoken, vociferous minority who are imposing their views on anyone else. And if a member of the silent majority tries to speak up in favour of most of the students, they immediately get cancelled by this kind of authoritarian outrage mob. And I suspect that something like that has happened here. I don't think for a moment that the majority of Bristol University students would find the singing of the national anthem at their graduation ceremonies offensive. It's the elite, woke, intellectual class at the university, I think, who are imposing these decisions on the rest. As George Orwell said, and this was back in the 1940s, Patrick, he said that almost any English intellectual would feel more ashamed of standing to attention during God Save the King than of stealing from a poor box. And I think amongst the tiny woke elite at Bristol who are imposing their will on the rest of the university, that's still true.
Aaron, what would you say to someone who says, look, if you don't like the national anthem of this country, then maybe you should leave?
Well, there is also the opportunity, of course, to just not sing it. I mean, if people don't like it, they don't have to sing it. That is generally also an option as well. So I do find the whole thing, just to be clear, rather strange. Obviously, it's not offensive, but if you don't like it or you don't know the words, particularly if you're not a UK national, of course, many people coming to British universities aren't, then yeah, you just don't have to sing it. Nobody's forcing you to do so. So it is a bit of a strange one. In response to this idea that the British left hate, the national anthem, it's sung at every football match. In my mind, that's what I associate it with, is the England national side. That's when it's sung more often than not. And I've never had the slightest issue with it. I think perhaps if we wanted a bit more of a banger, maybe we'd adopt Land of Hope and Glory. But I understand that these are quite big conversations, and they go beyond whatever might have a better melody. The interesting part about this is, of course, the generation gap. I think that's a really good point. I think there was an immense amount of affection for the Queen purely because of her accomplishments, how long she'd been in the position. Obviously, she steered the country through so much. And I think it probably is inevitable that for younger people, and I don't mean myself in that, sadly, I'm 39, for 18 to 24s, I think there probably is a large number of them who, yes, Toby's right, they won't, vehemently hate the monarchy. They just won't care. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge for the monarchy in the 21st century, is indifference and apathy.
Yeah, but is that, dare I say, Toby, maybe the kind of thing that universities, schools should be teaching people, that the monarchy isn't irrelevant and that, maybe it's a sign of a throwback to a period of time that we all have to move on from. I actually just feel quite sorry for a lot of younger people coming through universities now, because as far as I can tell, I think they seem quite miserable because there's a lot of the country that they detest.
Yes, it does feel quite miserable. And, what are they going to sing in place of the national anthem? They're probably not going to sing anything at all. There won't be any singing now at graduation ceremonies at Bristol, which does feel a little bit miserable compared to what came before. I mean, I resent this argument that because a lot of the students at Bristol are international students, this is one of the arguments that's been made in favour of stopping singing the national anthem. A lot of them are international students. They're from different parts of the world. The national anthem will mean very little to them. But one of the reasons international students want to come to British universities is because of their Britishness. I think we dilute that Britishness. We get rid of those British traditions, things like singing the national anthem, at our peril. Maybe international students wouldn't be so keen to come to our universities if they become this kind of bland European Eurovision Song Contest like blancmange and lose their British identity.
Aaron, is this not one of the reasons maybe why society is so disunited at the moment. The national anthem is something that people can unite behind. It's a way of maybe gluing a country together, something that we can all bond behind, like a kind of rallying cry. And if we start to question that and say, oh, it's irrelevant and the monarchy's irrelevant and all of this, does it not just continue with this relentless pigeonholing of people and frankly, division?
Well, I think just to respond to both that and what Toby said a moment ago is that there is increasingly little that is unique about British universities, and that is because we're running them as businesses. And it goes back to my original point. If you want them to have that uniqueness, that relationship to previous generations, to a sense of continuity, both cultural and national, if you want that, then we can't run them as things which basically, crave the money of asset managers and hedge funds. So, and I think this is a problem, by the way, for the centre-right, is that the centre-right in this country has venerated business, outsourcing, privatisation for 40 years. And what you do is you do get this blancmange of national institutions. We're seeing it in particular with the universities, but you can see it everywhere else as well. And people like Toby will, and I'm not attacking Toby here, I think this is what you would say, Toby, correct me if I'm wrong. People like Toby might say, well, they're obsessed with the DEI and the ESG and all this kind of virtue signalling stuff that goes alongside the corporate capitalism. Fine, let's have that conversation. But the point is, as long as these are run as businesses and not as national institutions, you will have that problem. Look, for me, I think there's a really solid, small c conservative argument in taking universities back to where they were 25, 30 years ago. Guess what? That includes probably scrapping tuition fees.
OK, look, chaps, really interesting stuff. Thank you. Proper debate, that proper discussion. You love to see it. That was the General Secretary of the Free Speech Union, Toby Young, and Enviromedia co-founder, Aaron Bastani. Look, we're talking about the national anthem. We're talking about patriotism. We're talking about people rallying behind it. Here's a little clip. There we go, Nigel Farage doing his bit there, belting it out. At least it wasn't too sexy for my shirt, though. But who do you agree with in that debate there? Is it offensive to sing the national anthem? OK, so Becky on Twitter says, if our country's national anthem offends you, then get out of the country. This is our national anthem. Sing it loud and proud. God save the King. I'm inclined to agree with you. There is an easy solution, isn't there? If you hate the national anthem of a country, you can go to a different country. Hainsey on Twitter says, yes, in certain circumstances. Didn't elaborate on that. Cheers, though, Hainsey. Vincent on Twitter says, I don't find it offensive. However, I don't believe in God or the monarchy. So it's largely meaningless to me personally, and you'll never catch me singing it. Right, well, a range of views there. Your verdict is in now. 12.7, very specific, 12.7% of you think that the national anthem is offensive. 87.3% of you say that it is not. Thank you for everybody who's taken part in that poll there at GB News on Twitter. Coming up, as former ITV This Morning presenter Philip Schofield admitted to a, quote, unwise but not illegal affair with a younger colleague earlier this year, an external investigation has now found that ITV was unable to uncover the relevant evidence until Schofield's admission in late May 2023. Well, I'll be joined by the Mail's editor-at-large, Charlotte Griffiths, to dissect what this means and actually whether or not Philip Schofield could make a big return. I mean, has he been exonerated by this now? Was there anything to really admonish him with? Some other people are saying this is a whitewash and it's all a little bit of a cover-up. But coming up, as Prince Harry loses his court case against the Mail, we get the royal insight from the former BBC royal correspondent, Jenny Bond. Don't move.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right then, now earlier today, Prince Harry lost his legal challenge in a libel claim against the publisher of the Mail on Sunday. So this means the case must go to court. The Duke of Sussex is suing Associated Newspapers Limited over an article about his legal challenge against the Home Office. That follows changes to his security arrangements. So the Prince had said that a story falsely suggested that he had lied and cynically tried to manipulate public opinion, and he wanted to get the Mail on Sunday's defence to those claims thrown out, but he was told, no, that can't happen. Joining me now to dissect this is royal commentator Jenny Bond. Jenny, right, can you just tell us exactly what Prince Harry has lost here, really, and what's going on?
Well, it's very complicated, and it's part of a whole raft of legal cases he's bringing, 4 against newspapers, 2 against the Home Office. This, as you say, was against the Mail on Sunday. He didn't like what the paper had written, and the Mail on Sunday said that it was honest opinion, the suggestion that Harry had tried to keep secret his battle for legal for protection. Now, the judge today decided that that was a legitimate part of the Mail's defence, and therefore the defence can stay intact as the Mail wants, and it will go forward. It doesn't mean that Harry has lost, but it has to be said that the judge did suggest that the defendants, the Mail on Sunday, have quite a strong case and had a prospect of being successful, but we have yet to see. As you say, there's other cases going on at the same time, and it's all terribly confusing.
Yeah, no, indeed. So I'm just going to read a little bit more detail into this. So there's this libel case centres on an article that, this is according to the judge, claimed the Prince tried to, quote, mislead and confuse the public over a dispute with the government, that dispute relating to personal security and police protection, etc., etc. The headline said that the Duke, quotes, tried to keep his legal fight with the government over police bodyguards a secret, but that his PR machine tried to put a positive spin on the dispute. Now Harry denies all of this. He denies that, and he denies the suggestion that he only offered to pay for his security after starting legal proceedings in 2021. So he's lost this round, OK? Do you think this is a sign of things to come for Harry? Do you think he'll regret spending all of this money, going through the courts, taking on the press, taking on the Home Office?
Well, he's already lost the battle that he should be allowed to pay for his police protection. And that was part of an earlier case. And there is a judgment reserved on whether the whole way that his protection was downgraded was treated. He feels that that was unfairly done, and that the committee that makes those decisions, RAVEG, really singled him out and didn't treat him in the same way as other dignitaries and high-profile people. For example, they suggest that a risk assessment wasn't carried out. One development tonight, actually, I've noticed, which is quite interesting, is that Harry always suggested that RAVEG, that committee, treated him unfairly, partly because there were people from the royal household on that committee, which he hadn't been aware was going to be the case. One of those people was Sir Edward Young, the late Queen's private secretary. And tonight a document has come to light which said that Sir Edward Young had written to the Cabinet Secretary, Sir Mark Sedwill, in which he was quoted as saying that the Queen, the late Queen, regarded keeping Harry and Meghan safe of paramount importance, and that was a view held by the Queen and her family. And that goes against really what Harry has been implying throughout, that the protection was simply taken away from him and that he was treated unfairly by people at the palace. So the more these cases go on, the more, to an extent, some of his arguments seem to unravel a bit.
I mean, there is a bit of a theme here with Harry and Meghan, I think, which is that claims can be put out there, allegations can be put out there, quotes unquotes, their truth can be put out there. And when you are seriously made to prove this stuff, like you are in a court of law, for example, quite often that unravels, Jenny.
Yes, it does. Though you have to say that Meghan's been quite successful in the legal action she's taken against newspapers. And I'm not a legal person, I'm in no position to judge that, but I think that there could be some sympathy for Harry in this question of protection, because he can't undo the fact that he is a royal prince, he's born a prince, or that he obviously has a military service background, and that he is a target. And indeed, that's what was being made, that point was being made by Sir Edward Young in this letter I'm referring to, that he does clearly remain a target. And that's what Harry is saying throughout. I want to bring my children over here. I want them to know their heritage. I want them to feel at home in the UK, and I can't do that unless I have protection. And he doesn't accept the Home Office's argument that that protection can be done on an ad hoc basis, case by case.
Yeah, I mean, so the Mail on Sunday is using what's called the honest opinion defence, right, which gives protection to individuals or organisations from being held liable for defamation in cases where statements are made as opinions rather than false statements of fact. And a trial is expected now to be held in 2024. So we're going to end up seeing quite a lot of Harry, or his representatives anyway, in and out of court. And it will be fascinating, won't it, to see how well he fares or otherwise. Jenny, just before I let you get going, obviously, a GB News star is currently in the jungle, rather annoyingly for me. He's in the jungle and on air at exactly the same time that I am, which is, I think, a cruel twist of fate. But Nigel Farage is now in the last 5, and at the end of tonight, he could be in the last 4. Are you surprised by how well he's doing?
I am, actually. I have to say, tonight, I've just been watching it. He has been a right old bossy boots. I would not be at all surprised to see him getting kicked out tonight, because he's been really, he's been quite obnoxious about the way he's forced himself into doing this latest trial when Josie wanted to do it quite clearly. So he's upset quite a few people tonight. So we'll see what the audience...
Right, well, that makes it more important. Jenny, thank you, by the way. Jenny Bond there, of course, royal commentator and author and broadcaster, everything extraordinaire. Well done. Well, it sounds like Nigel might need your help then, doesn't it, if what Jenny's saying is true? You can vote for Nigel now. Take that QR code, scan it on your phone, make Nigel king of the jungle. Can I just say as well, a massive thank you to everybody who is watching this show and not watching all of that guff that's over there currently on ITV. Don't do it. This is better. But later on, in case you are intrigued to know how Nigel does, we will be going down under with Adam Cherry to give you a very, very, very snap overview of what's been going on. So you're not going to miss out, all right? Stay here, because next, former ITV This Morning presenter Philip Schofield admitted to an unwise but not illegal affair with a younger colleague earlier this year. An external investigation has now found that ITV was unable to uncover relevant evidence until Schofield admitted that himself. I'll be joined by the Mail's editor-at-large, Charlotte Griffiths, to dissect what this really means. Could he now make a dramatic comeback to your radio, to your television screen? Do you think that that report is a complete whitewash and it's not worth the paper it's written on? Stay tuned.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, if you thought that Philip Schofield's career was over, you might be about to think again, because he's reportedly set for a huge showbiz return in the new year. However, he recently refused to be probed by an external investigation into ITV's toxicity due to concerns over his mental health. This comes after his unwise but not illegal relationship saga. Joining me now to pick through all of this is the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large. It's Charlotte Griffiths. Charlotte, thank you very, very much. Right, very much two sides to this. This is a bloke who's the person he was entangled with has never complained, and his wife doesn't appear to have said anything either. But then the other side of this is, well, you know, actually maybe this report is a whitewash. Where are you? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm sort of on the whitewash side because they only asked 48 people to take part in this, and only one person said they knew about the goings-on between the runner and Phil Schofield. But I know at least one person at the time, myself, who was working there, who knew all about it. Everyone in the media knew about it. It was a really widely known thing. So why did nobody in the inquiry kind of say that they knew about it? They must have done. They just must have done.
I do wonder who they've spoken to as well. I mean, yeah, there are certain former colleagues who were very vocal at the time, saying that there was an open secret here and that everybody knew about it. I think that, regardless, this now definitely does leave a door open for Philip Schofield to come back. I mean, just off the basis of that report, you cannot ruin someone's professional life off the back of what that report says, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, the report says that, you know, junior people felt they couldn't speak up, but it kind of, as you say, it whitewashes over him, and it just makes him seem like he's basically innocent. And the history books will sort of say, "What was the big deal? This, you know, this report said there was no big deal." So if he wants to make a return to ITV in the new year, well, there's nothing incriminating there. So why not bring him back on and make him part of the ITV team again? So I don't know if that's what this is all leading to, but there are these reports, aren't there, that he's going to be on Celebrity Big Brother, that he might even get £2 million to go back onto ITV's version of Celebrity Big Brother. So, you know, but then again, he has been going through a very dark place and couldn't actually take part in the inquiry. So is he actually fit to return to our screens? It's very difficult to know, I think, at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, do you find it quite hard to believe that they could only find supposedly one person in this report who claimed that they had some kind of knowledge about what was going on?
Yeah, and the report is contradictory because it says there's a culture of silence. It does admit to a culture of silence, but they stop short saying a culture of toxicity. But if you live in a culture of silence, it means you're afraid of something, which means there's a culture of toxicity. So the report actually sort of admits, you know, people seem to be afraid to speak up about this, and that's what I think is the root cause of this. And I know that was the root cause at the time. Everyone was talking about it, but they didn't dare speak up because Phil, of course, was the big boss, and he subsequently said, you know, it was actually true and I lied about it.
The irony here is that potentially if he'd have kept his mouth shut and not admitted anything, and then we get this report off the back of it, I mean, he could still be on this morning.
Yeah, he may have sailed through, but I think a lot of the reason why he did the full mea culpa, and he's been incredibly loyal to ITV, is to keep that door slightly open in the hope that one day there might be a Celebrity Big Brother or some sort of way of creeping back through, or even perhaps his loyalty has somehow been rewarded because they haven't gone really nitty-gritty here and really dug deep on that report because they've only asked 48 people. There were 70 people working every day on this morning. God. So they haven't even asked, you know, the right amount of people. And I don't know if they've asked Holly, for example, but, you know...
So go on. So what are your big questions for this report, then? Because I don't, you know if maybe we'll ever get to the very bottom of this, but what would your big questions for the people who conducted and wrote this report be?
It would be, who did you ask? Because they've said there's a culture of silence among the juniors, and it seems like they've asked quite a lot of junior people because they haven't been brave enough to admit what they probably knew. So I'd say, who did you ask? You know, could you really not have asked the runner or Phil Schofield? You know, I appreciate he's in a dark place, but might there be a way of delicately finding a way to speak to him about it? He needs to be part of the report, doesn't he? He needs to be part of the inquiry because he's the central figure in it, as is the runner.
In the court of public opinion, though, I mean, this was massive at the time. It was front page news. It was everywhere. It was huge. And in the court of public opinion, do you think there's a way back for him there? Because it's one thing saying, well, he would be able to be professionally resurrected. So, yeah, ITV or any TV or radio company or whatever would be OK to platform this guy. It's another thing the public deciding that they would want that. How do you feel? Is he damaged?
I think he is a little bit, and I think it's interesting that if he did do a show like Big Brother where the public votes, he might find he's voted off pretty quickly. I mean, maybe he'll do a sort of sob story at the beginning, do a bit of a mea culpa, but I think the kind of programme where there is voting might be quite helpful because it would kind of test the water for ITV about whether this guy's actually popular or not. At the time, he wasn't, was he? I mean,
Is Holly Willoughby damaged by this as well, do you think? By association?
I mean, in the court of public opinion, she was damaged by association at the time. Do you remember when it was all kicking off? People sort of were looking over at her a bit suspiciously. But she's been I mean, she's going for her own problems.
Yeah.
But she was always very careful at the time, wasn't she? To just keep well back. And she played a very good strategic game at the time.
It's good management, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's good management. Look, Charlotte, thank you. Great stuff, that. Always an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio. That's Charlotte Griffiths there, editor-at-large at The Mail on Sunday. Now, coming up, Germany has, shock horror this, has tightened up its borders and seen a massive reduction in illegal immigration. Is this proof that border controls do work? I will be joined for another clash by Stella Chantakidou and David Maddox. That will kick right off. But coming up, we will have the latest as well from Down Under. Will Nigel clinch the crown this weekend? I have all of that coming your way and much, much more as well as tomorrow's front pages.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. There'll be heavy rain for many areas of the country throughout Saturday. It'll turn quite windy through the afternoon, but there'll also be some sunshine later on and some drier interludes as the weekend progresses. Throughout the course of the night, we'll be between weather fronts. That means there will be some dry weather around, particularly for central areas, the Midlands, parts of East Anglia as well, seeing some good dry, clear spells throughout the night. That dry weather then will push northwards, so some respite spreading north throughout the night, but also some very heavy rain arriving into the far southwest. With a southerly breeze across the country, another mild night, but it will be a very wet start to the weekend, particularly across southern areas where there's already a lot of water on the roads, as well as Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland too, where we've had a lot of rain already this week. By the afternoon and by lunchtime, it does clear up from the west, and so there will be some sunshine in the afternoon, but the winds do pick up, and there is a wind warning in force. We could see gusts in excess of 60 miles per hour, particularly across Irish Sea coast throughout the course of Saturday afternoon. There'll be another dry interlude Sunday morning, particularly across eastern areas, so a good start to the day on Sunday, but it does quickly cloud over as this next area of rain pushes eastwards. It will be a briefer spell of rain, and behind it we'll see further dry weather arrive. We could also see some more dry weather developing by the middle of next week, but it will be an unsettled start to the week at least.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. and this is Patrick Christys Tonight. Eco-activist Chris Packham, well, he thinks it's OK to break the law for the sake of the environment.
I now consider it the ethically responsible thing to do.
But now he's been sacked for his political views by a bird charity. And things went from bad to worse for Rishi Sunak. Well, he got locked out of his own house alongside the Dutch PM. There he goes. Yeah, he's just outside the front door of Downing Street there. Can you let us back in? We'll fill for time. We'll try not to make it too awkward. There he is. He's only two world leaders. Both of them potentially not for that much longer. Oh, the door's open. There we go. Possibly a sign of things to come, I think. Now, Germany has managed to slash the number of illegal immigrants by doing something unbelievably radical. Having tougher border controls and ditching open borders. Has anyone thought of this? Has anyone thought of doing this? We debate that very, very shortly. On my panel, I've got Emma Wolfe, I've got John Sargent and Tonya Buxton. This is Patrick Christys Tonight. Happy Friday, everybody. Email me now, gbviews@gbnews.com. Does Germany prove that open borders absolutely don't work? I will see you after the headlines.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Downing Street has rejected claims MPs were misled over the cost of the Rwanda scheme. That's after it emerged the asylum plan has reached £240 million before any flights have taken off. Ministers expect a further £50 million will be spent in the coming year. Rishi Sunak, who's facing division within his party over the policy, is hoping to rush emergency legislation through Parliament, with the first vote on Tuesday. The US has blocked calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. A United Nations Security Council resolution to demand a ceasefire in Gaza failed because it was vetoed by the US. There were 13 votes in favour of demanding an immediate ceasefire and one abstention by the UK. The US is the only nation to vote against. A man has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 20 years for stabbing two police officers in central London.
From Great Wimble Street. Stay where you are. Get back!
The Met has now released body cam footage of the attack. Mohammed Rahman stabbed PC Joseph Gerard in the neck and chest and PC Alana Mulhall in the arm after a police pursuit in September last year. The 25-year-old was convicted of attempted murder and grievous bodily harm. A teenager has been arrested on suspicion of murdering a woman who was shot dead in East London. 42-year-old Leanne Gordon was killed in Hackney on Tuesday evening. She was one of 3 people found with gunshot wounds. A 20-year-old man and a 16-year-old boy were taken to hospital. A gender reform ruling has been described as a dark day for devolution by Scotland's First Minister. Scotland's highest civil court found the government acted lawfully by blocking the controversial bill. The legislation, which makes it easier for people to change their legally recognised sex, received cross-party support in Holyrood. Humza Yousaf says the judgment confirms that devolution is fundamentally flawed. And a funeral for the Pogues frontman Shane MacGowan has been held in Ireland. Paying tribute to the singer, the band's hit Christmas track, Fairy Tale of New York, was sung during the service. Family, friends, politicians and celebrities filled St Mary of the Rosary Church in County Tipperary. Hollywood A-lister Johnny Depp was among those delivering a reading. And giving a eulogy, his sister Siobhan said Shane MacGowan lit a fire that burns in Ireland and across the world. And his widow, Victoria Mary Clark, praised the singer.
He really did live so close to the edge that he seemed like he was going to fall off many times. I mean, we've had, me and Siobhan and all the family, we've kind of lived in terror, haven't we, for a very long time. But on the plus side, I think that exploration led to a kind of creativity which may not have been possible without the use of all these substances.
This is GB News across the UK, on TV, in your car, on your digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. And now it's back to Patrick.
If you think the national anthem of this country is offensive, then there is an easy solution. You can leave. Students at Bristol University apparently find the national anthem so offensive that the uni has cancelled it from their graduation ceremonies. Given that Bristol University students have a reputation as being upper middle class hooray Henrys who don't really manage to get into Oxbridge, they are probably just doing it to annoy their parents. Some of the comments from the students are ridiculous. The monarchy isn't really relevant to my generation, so it wouldn't be missed. I mean, what is relevant to your generation? Whinging, moaning, taking drugs and carrying on about the housing crisis. Another one said, it's a bit old-fashioned to have it played at a ceremony supposed to be celebrating the achievements of the individual student. I think it sums it up a bit, doesn't it, really? Do away with all tradition. It's not relevant to me. We've all moved on. It's symptomatic of academia's attempt to tear down society and the fact that it's been infected with woke, radical left-wing ideology that I'm convinced poses a monumental threat to the fabric of everything that we hold dear. Bristol is the same university where a university professor recently appeared to call for somebody to blow up a venue full of Jewish people. Research has shown that many students across the country are being given trigger warnings for upsetting material, and we're being taught about white privilege and a new moralism that reeks of hypocrisy. I'm convinced that most university lecturers simply couldn't get a proper job anywhere else. They moan about society, but they're very often completely useless members of it with overly inflated egos. This is a huge part of the reason why we're churning out a generation of useless, entitled individuals that would have our greatest generation not just turning in their graves, but also wondering what on earth they all fought and sacrificed everything for. But it also shows how a small group of radicals can negatively impact the rest of us. At the University of Warwick, thousands of students have reportedly been forced to go vegan because a hardcore group of just a few hundred students managed to win a vote to make the uni go meat-free. I mean, it does also tell you how lazy the other students were, to be fair, to not go out and vote for it. But this is symptomatic of society as a whole, where fringe radicals with nothing better to do manage to infiltrate organisations and local councils and force their views on everybody else. Is it any wonder we have a mental health crisis amongst young people when they're being brought up to believe that everything is bad? Our history is rubbish, the national anthem is offensive, and we have to tear everything down. I'd be miserable too if I believed that stuff. Our national anthem is not offensive, and if you think it is, then maybe you're choosing to live in the wrong country. But we're going to pivot a little bit on all of this and going to respond to that, but also an interesting story about Chris Packham. I'm joined again by former BBC chief political correspondent John Sargent, author and broadcaster Emma Wolfe, and author and activist Tonya Buxton. I am going to kick off with Chris Packham, actually, and talk about this guy because he's become increasingly outspoken when it comes to the environment, when it comes to all of that kind of stuff. And he's recently, in case you've missed this, been sacked by a bird charity, right, for his political views. Tonya, your take on this, is that too far, do you think?
No, he was causing a divide in the charity. The charity, which is looking after birds, was losing members. And so, of course, they had to get rid of him because and one of the things they said is that they'd hardly spoken to him all year. He hasn't done anything for the charity, so why should they bother keeping him? What's the point of it? And also, his views are very divisive. You know, if you are dealing with the protection of birds, you know, a lot of his views on climate change are very divisive. You might not agree with it. And also, this charity is in the country. He doesn't really agree with country living. So these people are trying to make a living for themselves. He's putting them down.
It does seem to me to be a bit of a step too far for him to essentially come to the conclusion that it is a ethical thing to break the law if you're doing that in a way that promotes climate activism.
Yeah, I agree, and I think everything that Tonya says is absolutely spot on. I don't think, if you want to mouth off about climate change, if you want to support really quite controversial movements such as Just Stop Oil, such as Extinction Rebellion, if you want to tell people to break the law, to go out and break the law, then I think you have to take the consequences. That's not to say you can't do it, you can, but then you have to take the consequences. You can't have it all. He needs to choose. And actually, the other point, which is that he hasn't really done much for this charity. It's called Raptor Rescue. And many of the members were very uncomfortable with his political stance. So I think they've done the right thing.
So people like Carol Vorderman recently have got in trouble with certain groups for their particular views. They're saying, well, look, you know, if you are going to have these views, like, that's fine, but you are representing our charity as well, and we don't particularly want that. There's another guy called Guz Khan, who's actually not been cancelled by Have I Got News For You, because he's going to be hosting that. He has said some incredibly fruity stuff about the Israel-Palestine situation. That got him, I believe, cancelled from, I think it was an Uber Eats advert. John, do you think that people maybe get a bit above their station when it comes to pumping out political stuff, when maybe they should just be focusing on things like the charity?
No, I agree. I think Marlon Brando once said, he said more and more, this is years ago, more and more actors are giving their opinions on political matters. And he said, that's strange, but it's even strange that they're answering these questions. You know, so for him, he was a top actor, one of the best actors of the 20th century. And for him, this was crazy that he should be asked his views. And it's also pretty crazy for someone who's presenting a natural programme like Spring Watch, brilliant programme, Autumn Watch and so on, where it's very much to do with, look, this is the reality. This is how these animals, how they've got to behave, how they do behave. And for him then suddenly to say, but this gives me the right to use this platform, which is very much an expert platform, but suddenly I'm going to talk to you about politics and I'm going to be right, and you've got to follow what I say. It's sort of cracked, really. It's completely inappropriate, and it does mean, as you say, that they feed on their own feeling. I must be important because I'm on television all the time. It doesn't follow at all.
No, as I found out to my peril, of course. But look, Chris Packham will say that he wasn't overtly telling anybody to break the law, and that, you know, he was just saying he thought it was ethical. I suppose what he might also say, Tonya, is that, you know, in his job and his capacity as somebody who presents nature programmes, if he can see nature, in his view, being irreversibly damaged by a man-made climate crisis, his views, then he should be speaking out. What do you think about that?
Well, I understand where he's coming from to a certain extent if he believes that, but he never gets into any real conversations about the climate with scientists that have a different view. He just shouts them down. That's what I've seen of him. I've never seen him actually sit down and have those conversations. And it's Country Watch, and there's a lot of country people that live off the land and have to do certain things to the land to get their livelihood. He doesn't care about poverty. He's kind of gone way too far the other side. You know, humans first, then the animals, and that's how life should be. You don't put animals before humans. And he has an opposing view to that.
OK, Emma, what's your...
Well, no, to me, the absolute sort of pinnacle of this is the Gary Lineker syndrome, whereby a man who's taking, well over £1 million a year from the BBC in a very comfortable salary, thank you very much, feels that we all need to know his political views, and I think he strays. I think that you sign up to that, and then you don't use your very public platform.
This is true in most jobs, isn't it? I mean, most people, when you go to work,
you have to take the
you don't think.
of what
And
you do.
actually, I think what I'll do is I'll take 10 minutes off and go and parade up and down shouting my views. You think, actually, I don't think my bosses will like this.
I worry that that's changing.
It's not just to do with broadcasting. It's to do with ordinary, normal jobs. I'm a lorry driver. Does that mean I can stop?
You are a very public person like Lineker.
Yeah. You know, but I mean, this idea that somehow we've all got a right, because of freedom of speech, to shout whatever we think.
But only
at any time of day, whenever we feel like.
It's only really the BBC that gets away with a lot of this, let's be honest, isn't it?
Only certain views as well. As this is the thing, Tony, because
they have an opinion.
You know, if I...
There was a Channel 4 piece that he did.
It was a Channel 4.
The Channel 4 piece he did on whether or not he was... Actually, I watched it carefully, and I thought he was being extremely careful, not saying, I think we all ought to go off and... take action.
I mean,
he wasn't saying.
He headbutted the line.
And he was sailing as close as he could, but he wasn't actually expressing his own view, which is obviously, if you take part in these marches, you just want oil to be stopped. I mean, that's it. Well, you must believe that, otherwise why take part in those marches?
Yeah, exactly. But let's just say, Tony, that he'd had the polar opposite view, right? Let's just say that he thought that there was a bit of a climate con going on, or that things like ULEZ were just a money-grabbing grift for the Mayor of London, and etc.
You know, be out.
Or he decided to relentlessly drape himself in the Israel flag as opposed to someone doing very similar things with Palestine, or he openly said he voted for Brexit. You get the gist that I'm going for.
He would be instantly labelled as a right-winger, as a xenophobe, racist.
He wouldn't have a job. He'd be out. That would be it. You don't get a chance.
Funny how one side is allowed and the other
with what they want. You either go with what they want, and then you get away with murder, literal murder, or you're out. That's the way it is. I know to my own peril, because I spoke out so badly so much about the lockdowns. You know, I'm not working on terrestrial television anymore on the mainstream channels because they didn't like that I was calling them out.
Well, their loss is our gain.
It is.
Fantastic stuff. Right, look, off to another flyer here. You were getting our money's worth out of you lot tonight. Coming up, Germany has tightened up its borders, seen a massive reduction in its immigration, illegal immigration, as a result. Now, is this proof that border controls work? We are going to be having a big debate on this with Stella Chantakidou, former Labour Party advisor, and David Maddox of The Express. That is going to kick right off, and I bring back tonight's panel of top pundits to run through the first of tomorrow's front pages. It'll be the most entertaining paper review you get on British telly, and we'll give you the front pages before anyone else. What's not to love?
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, welcome back. Debate time now, because Germany could be leading the way to solve the migration crisis, despite many people believing they caused the flipping thing in the first place. Illegal migration to Germany dropped dramatically last month after Berlin introduced tougher controls at the borders. Stats showed that there were around 4,353 unauthorised entries into the country over its land borders in November. That, it's still a lot, isn't it? Compared to 18,500 pretty much in the previous month. So look, should we follow their example? Does this prove that open borders have essentially ruined Europe and that now we need to have tougher border controls? Joining me to debate this is Stella Chantakidou and David Maddox. Both of you, thank you very, very much. David, I'll start with you on this. Do you think that this proves that open borders are a complete disaster? We should never have had any of them in the first place across Europe. What do you think?
Well, yes, open borders are a complete disaster. And of course, though we can, in some ways, give the Germans a backhanded thanks for their open borders in 2016, because that certainly helped push the Brexit vote over the line, I think. Yeah, I mean, we all remember the consequences of those open borders. I mean, the European Union, though, still has a big problem with Schengen and all the rest of it. I'm not convinced, frankly, that the border controls in Germany is really what's doing it. I think the German economy is tanking at the moment, and I suspect that more people want to come and work in Britain because actually, despite all the miserable talk, we're doing a bit better.
Interesting, if Germany has rendered itself so undesirable to illegal migrants that that's the reason why they're doing it. I mean, hey, it's a novel approach, but maybe we could take a leaf out of their book as well. Stella, you love open borders, don't you? I mean, look, come on. Is this not proof, Stella? A 40% reduction in illegal migration in just a month because they've actually decided to police the borders, Stella.
You don't have open borders. There is no country that has open borders. The UK doesn't have open borders.
Not the UK, the Europe.
Europe doesn't have open borders. Yes, you have freedom of movement, sure. It's not the same thing. You're talking about illegal immigration. If it is illegal immigration, then they would not be passing through the border the proper way anyway. So you're talking about two different things here.
OK, but, I mean, no, Stella, I disagree fundamentally. People could just wander around, they don't have to...
Europeans, when you're in the EU, so the UK no longer is in the EU.
Yeah.
So technically you shouldn't have open borders. Never mind the fact that because of the completely inept Conservative government that we are suffering under, you have all of these illegal immigrants coming here. Never mind that.
But how have they got here, Stella? They've wandered through a continent which does strongly imply that there aren't that many checks for illegal immigrants anywhere on that continent, no?
There are checks. You are quite right. They're inadequate, and I do think there is something to that, what David is saying. We do not know whether it is, in fact, Germany's very good border policies right now that mean that less illegal immigrants are crossing through. That is a problem, and I do agree European governments do need to take responsibility for the illegal immigrants going through their borders. I agree with that.
All right. David, now, look, one of the reasons why the German government have decided to do this is because there's a lot of pressure from the right-wing AfD. And I just wonder if there's a lesson in this. People keeping the pressure on the government and that real threat, like the Tories are seeing now from reform, actually enacts the kind of policies that many people think are common sense.
I think the German government must be absolutely terrified because they've just seen what's happened in the Netherlands with the election there and the right wing winning there, and it's all down to illegal immigration. I mean, and the concerns that all normal European citizens, just like normal British citizens, have about it. I think, though, frankly, they're policing their borders better, but they could probably thank Hungary and Italy more for stopping the flow, because of those two countries, especially Hungary over the years, but Italy now, are actually trying to stop people coming in. They're taking their responsibilities as being the kind of fortress wall of Europe. But it's it's crazy. We all know, when we go over to the European Union, when we manage to get over there and we're driving around, there is no stop. I drive between France and Belgium and Germany. Nobody's going to stop me. And that's fine for a tourist, but we've seen this with terrorist attacks. We've seen terrorists from Belgium come down to Paris, and it is a big problem. And really, Europe's got to get its act together.
Stella, do you feel as though maybe you were slightly on the wrong side of history here? Having, free movement of people and open borders was a nice romantic idea, but it's being systematically abused and now people are shutting it down.
But wait a minute, wait a second. If I thought that the Conservative government, I thought that Conservative politicians who have been in power for the last more than a decade, I thought they were trying to reduce illegal immigration. Immigration has been increasing. So why is it me, who is pro-immigration, on the wrong side of history when the Tories... Can you explain to the public, can someone explain, one responsible Conservative politician explain, why has it been their policies for more than a decade to reduce immigration, and yet immigration is at a record high level? Clearly, this is not a left-wing policy that anyone has advocated. They weren't in power to begin with.
I suppose the argument against that, Stella, may well be that at least the Conservatives, although I think they were either lying or incredibly stupid or both, were at least claiming to bring it down.
You said that, your words, not mine.
No, I did say it. I say it every single day pretty much now. But whereas maybe some people on the other side were just dogmatically saying that mass immigration is a good thing. David, Stella's onto something there, though, isn't she? This victory now for James Cleverly that, we're going to reduce legal migration by 300,000. It's still going to be more than a city the size of Coventry every single year, isn't it? Maybe we need to be focusing more on the legal side.
Well, I like James Cleverly a lot. He's a really nice guy. He's just been in the job for a few weeks, but this isn't James Cleverly's victory. This is a policy that's been around for at least 2 years. Priti Patel was trying to push it. Suella Braverman tried to push it 6 times and was stopped by the Treasury, stopped by other ministers. And it's absolutely right. The Conservative government has failed on this, and this is one of the reasons I think they're going to get a drubbing at the next election. They could have done a lot better to control our borders, both legal and illegal, and they haven't done it.
Stella, was the European Union and its member states wrong to allow millions and millions and millions of undocumented people to wander in?
No, and you know what, Patrick? My heart breaks for James Cleverly for being so new to politics after 13 years of Conservative government, as if this is his first front bench position.
You don't think they were wrong, Stella?
I don't think they were wrong.
Millions of blokes.
The UK left the EU. And yet you have record numbers of immigration. And you know what's the problem, Patrick? That a lot of the people who are so frustrated with the immigration numbers right now, they would much prefer it if they had immigrants from European countries who they feel, this is not my position, by the way, but they feel European immigrants culturally, in terms of culture and religion, they are closer to the British people. They would have preferred to have more immigrants from the EU. And now they are forced to have immigrants from all over the world, from countries with different cultures and religions, and they have even more things to complain about.
Well, then
so whose problem is it?
Yeah, no, exactly. And then that raises the integration argument, the cultural argument, etc., that we do have many times on this show. Electric stuff, both of you. I loved it. That's enough, Stella. Thank you there. Lovely stuff, both of you. Thank you. I'll see you again very soon. Stella Chansakidi there, David Maddox, a second clash and a stellar edition of it coming up. I'll be joined by legendary broadcaster and journalist Michael Crick to go through tomorrow's headlines hot off the press. But next, I bring back tonight's panel of pundits to give you the very first look at a couple of those front pages, what's inside the book, and it will be the most exciting review, paper review anywhere on British telly. What's this going on in my ear now? Oh, yeah, we'll be going to Australia as well for the latest on Nigel Down Under. See you in a bit.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, we can cross live to GB News reporter Adam Cherry, who is down under for us with the very latest on Nigel Farage in the I'm a Celebrity jungle. Has Nigel made it through?
Yes, Patrick, big news. He's through to the final four. Marvin, in the last couple of minutes, has been eliminated. So the Vote Remain campaign continues into the semi-final. So remember, every day the vote resets. So if we want to see Nigel into the final and be crowned King of the Jungle, you've got to scan the QR code. You have to keep voting every single day. So far, it's working a treat. Now, as for what we saw today, it was a packed episode, actually. But I think the moment which will get the most attention for sure is when Nigel met his daughter Izzy. So all the campmates met one member of their family or friends today. It's quite a new moment for the show. Haven't seen each other in a month. And I think we've got a clip of this, Patrick. So we're going to take a look at this. This is Izzy.
It's all right. Oh, Adam, I'm just going to stop you there because we're going to play that clip just a little bit later on. But how's it been going for Nigel in the camp? I heard a little bit of a rumour earlier on because obviously I don't watch this tosh, right? I'm here working on a proper show, all right? Real, genuine news and entertainment, not that nonsense that you're seeing down under now. But a little birdie did tell me that Nigel, he got into a bit of a kind of row. Did he a bit about doing a challenge or something? Was he a bit grumpy or not?
Nigel a bit grumpy. Oh, I can't imagine it. So he has been a little bit agitated in the last couple of days. There was this whole controversy over some burnt rice with Sam. Who was responsible for it? What actually happened? Why was the rice left unattended? They made up for it tonight. They cooked goat leg, and everyone was happy. Of course, Nigel also was in the challenge tonight, and he got full 5 stars with Marvin. Unfortunately, Marvin was rewarded by being booted out of the camp, but nonetheless, Nigel remains. And tonight, it's tomorrow night, it's the Cyclone Challenge. So Nigel's going to get absolutely battered by hurricane-strength wind and waves. So definitely not one to miss, Patrick. I know you don't normally watch it, but you might want to stick around for this one.
Nah. Well, there you go, Adam. Thank you very much, mate. Adam Cherry there, and that is the other side of our studio. There we go. Right, so I'm just going to bring my panel in now, Tonya and Emma. Look, before we get stuck into the papers, Tonya, I tell you what, the likes of the Daily Mirror and some of those renter gobs at the Guardian trot out every now and again saying Nigel must be cancelled. ITV will have blood on their hands if Nigel does well. I mean,
no, but look, Nigel is a really lovely, reasonable man, and I love the fact that he got goat. You know, I think I've given him my Greek lamb recipe that he can use there. I'm not sure if he has. I don't know.
Good.
But you know, they're desperate to get him out, but actually he's proving himself to be a really good guy. Everyone's coming out because they're brainwashed. Okay, they're all, even the kind of people that are coming out going, oh, you know, I got on even with Nigel. Well, why wouldn't you get on with Nigel? Why wouldn't you?
And now I can see why you were looking at me a bit there, Emma. I'm going to come to you in a second because I'll tell you what, I'll whiz you through the front pages now and it'll be obvious which one we're going to focus on. So let's just bring you tomorrow's News Tonight now. Most entertaining pay-per-view anywhere on telly. It's not hard though, is it? Because the others are rubbish. We go for the Daily Express first. Get me out of here. 5 million Brits Xmas getaway. Pretty self-explanatory, really. They're determined to escape the cost of living gloom. 5 million Brits. Christmas abroad.
Good for them. Good for them, though.
The Eye, I'll rattle through. The Eye, angry MPs plotting to derail PM's Rwanda law. I mean, tell me something we didn't know. The Daily Mirror. Farage fakery row. Vote Nigel campaign using bogus pics to boost his chances.
Desperate. That is desperate.
Yeah, well,
bogus pictures. Like...
Right, we'll get to it. I'll just whiz through a couple more. The Telegraph, generic, too many migrants to integrate. Yeah, so this is, by the way, our former immigration minister. So cheers, Bobby Generic. Integrating migrants into society is impossible at the current levels. Yeah, again, we all know that. Another nice picture of the Royals. The Guardian, Home Office told reveal full cost of Rwanda plan. So they are saying that Tories in disarray over controversial scheme as costs set to pass 400 million. Right, back to us here in the studio now. Let's zone in on the Mirror, right? So Nigel Farage's team is using doctored photographs in a desperate bid to win votes. Computer trickery is being used to create misleading images of Vote Nigel. Can I just say, this is completely and utterly pathetic. And I'm not just saying that. These are pictures that were about the Empire State Building with a picture of Nigel on it saying Vote Nigel, right? Also, obviously it's fake. And so what?
Have they never seen photographs that have been sort of put together? Are they pretending that people think that's real, that he's really at the top of the Empire State Building
desperate,
at the same time as being in the jungle? This is just a non-story. They're just bashing Nigel.
And if this has made the Mirror's front page, then, you know, honestly,
really,
shame on
they
anyone
need
who
to
goes
sort
to
out
buy
their...
the Mirror, because
well,
it really is.
They do need to sort out their journalism,
this is
but
not
really,
journalism.
this is pathetic.
This is just pathetic.
One ITV source said Nigel's team will stop at nothing.
Will they stop at nothing?
They will even Photoshop a photo of him on top of the Empire State Building. It's shocking.
They did him on the side of London taxis, right? Which actually, to be honest with you, I'm sure plenty of black cabbies would have actually willingly done that anyway. They had him at the Leicester Square Cinema, you know, the famous
It's a joke, get it?
Yeah, but so what as well? The point is, right, if they'd have actually done that, so if they'd have actually lit up the Empire State Building or actually lit up the Houses of Parliament, real people would have gone out and seen that and been more inclined to vote. Instead, now it's only people who've got him on Twitter that can actually see this stuff anyway, really.
I thought when I saw this front page at first, I didn't realise it was so obviously stupid and not worth it. I thought, what are they doing? Doctoring it, giving him, I don't know, pouty lips or more cheekbones? I wasn't sure. What do you mean by fakery row? I couldn't understand there would be something as stupid as superimposing. Of course it's silly, and of course they've done it. They're all doing it, and it's great fun to do. How can this be a front page story? How?
The Mirror's lost the plot.
Real, and actually there are real politics going on at the moment. There are real issues, and that's what's really sad about the Mirror.
The Mirror's lost the plot. They ran some kind of poll which showed that about half of their readers supposedly wanted Nigel to win. They then got two washed-up has-been Labour MPs on the front to say he needs to be out of there because he's evil and dangerous. And then the next day they were like, oh, actually, he's so boring, nobody's watching. And now they're going, oh, it's a fakery row. It's like, you know, show me you're rattled without showing me you're rattled. I've just got a quick clip of Nigel. I think I'm right in saying now meeting his daughter, is that right? Go on, let's do it.
Hello. I don't believe it. How are you, love? You all right?
Just happy to see you.
Oh, happy to see you, darling. Yeah, and you?
Yeah. Okay, let's sit down.
You know what? That's
a real human being, by the way.
Yeah.
It's really lovely.
You saw the emotion for his daughter
totally.
had such a lovely dad.
And if you were a parent, oh my God, you'd feel that 10
I've got it.
times.
I've got it.
I know. I'm like on the verge of tears.
Yeah,
and
really lovely.
I tell you who else came across really, really well. In fact, this time last week, exactly, we were doing it was Nigel's partner, Law. You know, she's out there as well now. So I think people are just seeing him in a very different
and also,
light.
I think it's really cool that there's politics in the jungle. I think it's really cool that viewers are actually seeing some things being discussed that aren't just about random celebrity gossip or like, you know, bull's testicles or whatever all this stuff is. I'm not watching the jungle. I want Nigel to win, but I'm not watching it. But I actually, from the clips I've seen, I think it's really interesting that he's explaining to them how the House of Lords works or his rationale for Brexit. You know, things like that.
I have no doubt
discussions.
that he has been doing a lot more discussing and turning a lot and getting hearts and minds in the jungle, and ITV are not showing it. Bear in mind that you're at the mercy of the edit. We're lucky to have what they showed, because actually if they'd let Nigel really... If they showed half of the stuff that he's doing, he would be far more popular. Imagine they're trying to make the edit so he looks bad and he still looks good.
I wonder if they're going to try and do everything they can. They must be bricking it over at ITV now. You had one of their chief execs standing up at an event, an industry event, just as Nigel went in, flicking the finger at him and slagging him off. They must be thinking, what on earth do we do if we've paid Nigel Farage £1.5 million to come and become even more popular than he already was, double his popularity, right? In the process, massively boost GB News.
Thank you so much.
And propel him to I mean, whoever's come up with that idea. I mean, can I just say, genuinely,
but I thought it was
thank you, ITV. Thank you. This is
wasn't
great.
it obvious for all of us from the beginning that he was going to win?
But we have we know him. We're not reading headlines in The Guardian and The Mirror. We know him as a good man.
Hold on. He turned up at the Conservative Party conference a few months ago and was absolutely mobbed.
I don't know. I still don't know if he'll win it outright, just purely because there's a couple of people in there. Sam, the Made in Chelsea lot, tends to do quite well. Can I, just while I've got you, talk about some slightly more serious news that's on the front of one of the papers? Is that all right? All right.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go to Telegraph, I think, because we're quite well versed in this topic, but it moves on the Rwanda discussion a little bit. So it's Robert Jemrick, who quit recently as our immigration minister. Party faces red-hot fury from voters over Rwanda legislation. Fine, but then this additional line is there are too many migrants to integrate. So he is basically saying, that the numbers are too high, and that at the moment we are not going to have a cohesive society. Tonya, I mean, is he right about
He's absolutely right. Why didn't he do something about it when he was in the job?
Literally what I thought with Suella Braverman. How can you say all this stuff and you didn't say it to the Prime Minister, or you didn't, nail your colours to the mast?
Absolutely.
Why are they saying this now? They quit and then they come out with this stuff. Well, they're in the Home Office. No wonder
when they
the Home
allegedly
Office
have power
is not fit for purpose.
It's not.
They should be doing what they believe when they have a position.
I think there are serious questions, though, Tonya, about the way that the civil service is going about it. These permanent secretaries on a heck of a lot of money, very often on more money than the Prime Minister himself, who, as Lee Anderson found out very easily, don't know the basics about how many people have been deported. And that did make me wonder, well, actually, hang on a minute. Our politicians, if this is the lot that they're being tasked with carrying out the things that the public care about, then we're knackered.
I have a real problem with senior civil servants. I don't think they should be having the jobs and the power that they have. If the British public vote for something and they don't like it, they have the power to just prevent it from happening. We know that from Brexit. So I think that there needs to be a real rejig of the way our governments are run. And someone needs to just grow the spine and do it.
But really, really disturbing stuff has come out of the Home Office over the past few months about insiders really just saying, we're not serious about immigration. None of these policies will ever be enacted. We're not really serious about taking back control of our borders. This is a democratic deficit. This is what people, no matter what you think of it, this is what people have asked our government to do again and again and again for 7 years since Brexit. I mean, way before that. This is an issue that really matters to people. And it's not racist and it's not xenophobic to say that. It's not racist to say you feel the country's being overwhelmed, that you can't get to see your GP, that you can't get your children into decent schools because we are being overwhelmed. No country could take on over 700,000 people year in, year out.
No, they can't. And I think it's symptomatic. In fact, I know it's symptomatic symptomatic of a group of people who live, you know, a certain kind of life.
They're not living in the coastal towns. They're not living anywhere.
And they think
where
that
people are being sent to.
And the most offensive thing for me is that they think that people who care about this stuff are thick and wrong, and they therefore are justified in overriding them. Stellar stuff. I will see you again in just a few minutes' time, because we're going to have a look at a couple of other front pages very, very soon with the one and only Michael Crick. So, yeah, and we'll be revealing our greatest Britons and union jackasses as well. But look, stay tuned, because we've got a lively end to this show. Don't go anywhere.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Yeah, welcome back. Now, we're going to round off the paper review with broadcaster and journalist Michael Crick, who I'm very grateful he joins me in the studio right now. Got a couple of other front pages that we haven't shown to you so far. So I've got the Times, which is PM's chance of Rwanda plan success 50% at best. Rishi Sunak's emergency Rwanda migration scheme has only a 50% at best chance of enabling flights to take off before the next general election. That is according to the government's official legal advice, apparently. So cracking stuff there. The Independent goes in with Johnny Depp and Bono join thousands bidding farewell to Pogue singer Shane MacGowan. That was a massive funeral for that musical legend today. And a big picture story on the front of The Independent. Images emerged of Palestinian men blindfolded and stripped to their underwear by Israeli forces in Gaza. The US piles pressure on Israel over the conduct of the war. So those are the two of the front pages there. Michael, I'm going to throw this over to you. What's tickled your pickle on the front there?
Well, actually, this picture, it's extraordinary. If you look closely at this picture
we'll bring it back up.
of the Palestinians who've been arrested by Israeli soldiers, what strikes me is how overweight they are. The men, virtually every man in that picture, I cannot believe that those men there are Hamas fighters. I mean, they're just... Those guys, look closely. They look like they are utterly unfit.
We do get you are known for your insightful angles on news stories, right? Genuinely, I'm not taking the mick.
But I mean, no, those men would never get anywhere near any army in the world. I mean, in other words, what I'm saying...
army, is it Hamas? It's a group of
but presumably if you are a Hamas fighter...
Yeah.
You've got to be pretty fit to do that job. I cannot believe that group of men there...
So are you insinuating...
I'm suggesting that they're probably not Hamas fighters.
Do you think... OK... Well, I mean, we don't know at the moment.
We don't know,
It's not, to be fair, I mean, you do raise quite a good point, which is singularly that they are all obese, which actually I must say I hadn't noticed until you literally pointed it out. Regardless of that, though, I mean, this picture, very emotive, you know, blokes all but naked with blindfolds on. I mean, the Israelis have got a right to figure out who's Hamas and who's not. I mean, that picture in isolation, I don't think points to anything untoward going on, or does it?
Well, it's interesting, actually, that there's been a lot of fuss about these pictures and the ones that appeared this morning in the papers about Palestinians being rounded up and how outrageous that is. I think much more serious is the thousands of people that have been killed in Gaza and the utterly disproportionate nature of the Israeli attacks, which are continuing. And indeed, the headline under this story is US piles pressure on Israel over the conduct of the war. And the Americans, Antony Blinken in particular, the Secretary of State, is making that clear to the Israelis now that the level of killings has got to stop. That the Americans are basically saying, you carry on targeting Hamas, but the level of civilian killings is far too high. And there comes a point, I think, where Israel is in danger of losing support from...
That was always going to be the big risk with Israel.
Exactly. I mean, and that's been the case in the past with Israel and its handling of the various crises that have occurred in the 80-year history of the state.
I mean, obviously, they will say, and I think there is absolutely truth to this, which is that, Hamas and the way that they operate, they will be trying to maximise the civilian casualties as a way of kind of coming back against Israel and using that as a propaganda tool. We know that they hide things in hospitals and schools, etc. So, and I suppose Israel will say, well, Hamas has gone on record and said, we'll just do it. We'll just do October the 7th again if you don't obliterate us, essentially.
Sure, but I mean, the other consideration is this, that even if they kill every signed-up member of Hamas, if there is such a thing, they are creating a new generation of fighters who could end up being even more extreme than Hamas, if that is possible. Now, I'm not in any way condoning the appalling events of October the 7th, but I'm just saying that the Israelis have gone too far here, and I think it's good that the West, the Americans, are making that clear to Israel. And I only wish that the Americans had been a bit tougher on Israel when it came to the whole issue of the Palestinian, of the Israeli settlements.
Yeah, look, it will be interesting to see how it pans out. I mean, I know a lot of people are still massively in favour of everything that Israel is doing. We'll have to see how that plays out. Can I just touch on the Times with you, please? PM's chance of Rwanda plan success 50% at best. This is apparently, according to the government's own legal advice. Is Rishi Sunak tearing his party and the country apart on a policy that just won't work?
I think there's two things here, aren't there? On the one hand, he desperately needs to fulfil that exaggerated promise of stopping the boats. I mean, when we heard that, we all thought, well, there's no way you're going to stop every boat. No. You might be able to reduce it. And to a degree, they have reduced it because of the Albanian situation. So if he could implement the Rwanda policy and act as a deterrent, that would be great for Rishi Sunak. But there's also an element that he needs to be seen to be trying to do something, and clearly he is that he can say that right now. But of course, it's not just the possibility here, which is what the government legal advisor is talking about, of it being of injunctions from the European Court of Human Rights, but you've got the whole issue of whether it's going to get through the House of Commons next week, whether it will subsequently get through the House of Lords, what will the UK Supreme Court say about it. So actually, it seems to me that the chances of a significant number of refugees or asylum seekers being sent to Rwanda within the next 12 months are pretty slim. But it's still worth, from a political point of view, it's still worth trying for Rishi Sunak because he needs to be seen to be trying. And there's nothing else really that is going to make a difference quickly.
Well, he's not going to turn the boats back, is he? And so I mean, you could argue in the seriously immediate future, forget.
I mean, if you
take moral things of that, that's the only thing that could have an immediate thing, right? So he's not going to do that. So therefore, it's this, isn't it?
I mean, if you take Labour's policies, for instance, which is negotiations with the French, tougher enforcement, intelligence, on all of that, those are policies that would take years to come to fruition.
We're going to have to park it there. Good stuff. I always absolutely love having you on. Seriously, I do.
I wanted to counter what you and your guest were saying about Nigel Farage.
I'll do it very quickly. Michael Craig thinks that Nigel Farage has got a nasty streak. There you go. Your views got out there. Right, now it's time for...
It's in my biography.
Shut up. Right, we're going to go to Greatest Britain at Uni and Jackass very quickly. We're only going to have time for Greatest Britain. So, Emma, can I start with you for Greatest Britain, please?
My Greatest Britain, Shane MacGowan, for the most beautiful, because I was hoping you might play an extra clip, the most beautiful Christmas song ever.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think we have time for that now, but everybody knows it anyway. And, Tonya, who's your Greatest Britain, please?
I've got joint Greatest Britons. I've got Sunita Gupta and Carl Hennigan, because if we'd listened to them and the Great Barrington Declaration, we wouldn't be in the mess we are now. We wouldn't have lost so many lives. And this COVID inquiry is a complete joke. And I want to just at least hold them up for the greatness of them, how good they were.
Right, well, two strong choices there. I'm going to go with Shane MacGowan because, you know, it was his funeral today. No, because you'll be back on and we'll probably nominate them again next time.
I will.
Tony, to be
Every time.
I'm going to go Shane MacGowan. It sounds like he had an absolutely right send-off today. Michael, thank you. Wonderful panel. Thank you very, very much over there. Lots of love to you all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on Monday at 9. Have a great weekend.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. There'll be heavy rain for many areas of the country throughout Saturday. It'll turn quite windy through the afternoon, but there'll also be some sunshine later on and some drier interludes as the weekend progresses. Throughout the course of the night, we'll be between weather fronts. That means there will be some dry weather around, particularly for central areas, the Midlands, parts of East Anglia as well, seeing some good dry, clear spells throughout the night. That dry weather then will push northwards, so some respite spreading north throughout the night, but also some very heavy rain arriving into the far southwest. With a southerly breeze across the country, another mild night, but it will be a very wet start to the weekend, particularly across southern areas where there's already a lot of water on the roads, as well as Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland too, where we've had a lot of rain already this week. By the afternoon and by lunchtime, it does clear up from the west, and so there will be some sunshine in the afternoon, but the winds do pick up, and there is a wind warning in force. We could see gusts in excess of 60 miles per hour, particularly across Irish Sea coast throughout the course of Saturday afternoon. There'll be another dry interlude Sunday morning, particularly across eastern areas, so a good start to the day on Sunday, but it does quickly cloud over as this next area of rain pushes eastwards. It will be a briefer spell of rain, and behind it we'll see further dry weather arrive. We could also see some more dry weather developing by the middle of next week, but it will be an unsettled start to the week at least.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on